2. Wild Boar Ambush. During the tumultuous times of the Blackguard War, it was common knowledge that a person's boko reflected their personality and emotions. It proved to be true when Meta's boko slowly turned white, as he became more and more corrupted. Yarai echoes of boko. The boys trudged through the dense foliage of Nguk Forest, trying not to trip over the gnarled roots that crisscrossed over the soil. Ru used his dull blade to slice through the green labyrinth of branches and shrubbery. I.A.E followed closely behind while Uzoma walked several feet after them, careful not to lose them under the low-hanging vines and tangled roots. Uzoma gazed up at the Nguk trees, marveling at their massive trunks, which looked like thick pillars holding up the sky, and their intricate network of roots emerging from the rich black soil like giant serpents. He noticed the wealth of other plants, noting the distinctive shapes and vivid colors of the edible species and the warning hues of their poisonous cousins. They trudged through the dense forest for hours and still had not found what they sought, a way to demonstrate their manhood. Uzoma yearned to try out his spell and see if the meditation had helped. Even though levitation was the only spell he knew, he was determined to master it. It was rumored that powerful blackguards could lift giant rocks and throw them as if they were nothing more than pebbles. "Which kingdom would you like to visit once you have finished training?" Beatrice asked. Beatrice was barely 5 feet tall, with deep brown skin and a thin frame. His small stature was deceiving. He was sharp, quick-witted, and confident. A welcome relief to Ru's impulsiveness. He was the kind of friend one could always rely on. "To tell you the truth," Uzoma began, but Beatrice cut him off, "I think I will take some time to explore. I want to visit the other kingdoms, meet some lovely ladies and other villages, then come back to assume chieftain duties from my father. And if you'd like, you could join me as my war chief." Uzoma was not interested in Askari matters. He had only one thing in his mind. His thoughts were elsewhere, consumed by the night his family died. It was always there. It seemed to be the only thing on his mind. "I have no interest in becoming war chief," he said. "I plan to hunt down the people who murdered my family." "Is that all you want to do with your life? You have the potential to accomplish so much more." "It's been my obsession since I was a child. The memories of that day haunt my dreams. I won't be at peace until I avenge those who were taken from me." "What about Ru?" "What about him?" Ru glanced over his shoulder at Uzoma and Beatrice, a smug frown resting on his face. "If any of you want to take over, you can," he shouted, then resumed slashing the plant life in front of him. A road snaked around the edge of the forest. It provided an easier and safer path, but the boys had no interest in safety. They wanted to prove themselves as men. Uzoma sighed. "Ru never had a family, so he doesn't understand either. Maybe you two can go on a journey once you're done at the training grounds." "No, he and I don't get along when you're not around." "No one gets along with Ru when I'm not around." Ru and I.A.E stealthily crept their way through the foliage. I.A.E quickly put his finger up to his lips to remind them to be quiet, then motioned them to hunch down and come closer. He nodded toward a nearby bush, and with extreme caution, he parted the branches just enough for them to get a glimpse of 2 warthogs. They were on their bellies, snouts buried in the muddy ground, plucking succulent grubs from the earth and completely unaware of the boy's presence. The 2 brown warthogs were of imposing size, at least 4 feet tall, and likely over 70 pounds each. Tusks jutted out from beneath their snouts, with sleek coats of fur, long legs, and strong hooves. They looked intimidating as they let out loud squeals and snorts as they rooted in the dirt for insects, pulled a branch from a nearby tree, and ripped it to shreds in search of any hidden prey. "So, what's the game?" Uzoma asked. "Alive, 20 coins. Dead, 10 coins, I.A.E replied. "Hold on. Why would they be worth more alive?" Ru asked. "They're hard to catch alive," I.A.E pointed out. "They can sprint pretty fast. Plus, they don't hesitate to fight back," Beatrice added. "In fact, they've been known to kill inexperienced hunters." "What?" Ru said. "Whose idea was it to do this again?" "Yours," Uzoma answered. "Don't tell me you're scared." "I'm not scared," Ru replied weakly. I.A.E raised his broken spear and hurled it toward the warthogs. The sharpened tip grazed the back of one of the pigs' necks, startling them both. Both warthogs bolted off, and the boys chased close behind. I.A.E clutched his spear from the ground and ran after them. The warthogs bounded through the forest with powerful, springy strides, weaving around branches and leaping over fallen logs. Ru heaved his blade forward to hit one of the creatures, but the animal twisted in time to evade the weapon. He charged after them with fury, yellow energy crackling around the blade as he recalled it back to his hands. Uzoma observed how Ru had progressed with his ability to levitate things. He, I.A.E, and Beatrus took off after one warthog, while Ru chased the other. Uzoma stopped. Unwilling to let Ru go at it alone, he shouted to I.A.E and Beatrus to keep going without him and sprinted to catch up to Ru and the warthog. The warthog bolted through the forest, panting and exhausted, until it reached a dead end at the base of a huge stone boulder. Vines, tufts of grass, and wildflowers covered the boulder's surface. Ru cautiously stepped forward and advanced toward the creature, blade in one hand and yellow boko glowing in the other. Uzoma arrived shortly after, and the two of them blocked the warthog in. They had it trapped. The animal let out a high-pitched squeal and reared up on its hind legs, ready to charge. Its black eyes glinted with fear and defiance as it saw Ru and prepared to pounce. Just as it leapt forward, a spear shot out of the sky, narrowly missing Ru, and impaled it right through the head, pinning it to the ground in an instant. The beast thrashed erratically for a few seconds before succumbing to death. "What?" Ru said. "Thanks," a voice from above them replied. "I was searching for my next meal, and you delivered it to me." A young boy in tattered black clothing descended from the branches of a nearby tree. He had been waiting in a tree branch above. A dark scarf concealed his face, leaving only his eyes exposed, and a necklace of crudely strung animal bones with a small human skull dangled at its center. "Look, fellas," he said as two more shadowy figures descended from the trees, their faces hidden beneath black scarves. They also adorned necklaces made from bones, but the skulls were missing. Ru stood beside Uzoma. "You took my kill, outcast." One outcast sneered, their voice low and menacing. "So? It's not the only thing we'll take from you." His cohorts nodded in agreement. "What are you calves doing out here anyway? Don't you know these parts of Nguk Forest are dangerous?" A menacing growl escaped the young outcast's lips as he pulled his spear from the warthog's neck. He was far smaller than Ru and Uzoma, but his presence held an unshakable gravity. Uzoma felt his body get tense. The skull on the outcast's necklace was a symbol of death, a reminder that this young man had killed before and would kill again. "Calves?" Ru said. "You dung shepherds have the audacity to call us calves?" Red boko pulsed with wicked intent around the second outcast's hands as he pointed towards Ru. A sinister snarl curled at the corners of his lips as he hissed, "You'd better think twice before you say another word, or I'll tear your tongue from your throat." Ru inched forward, but Uzuma's iron grip held his arm in place. Tension crackled in the air as the third outcast growled and slowly unsheathed a blade. The sharp glint of steel filled the air with a sense of dread. "Come on, Ru," Uzoma urged, his voice tight with tension. He knew they could fight off the outcast, but he wasn't sure how many more lurked in the shadows. He did not know what had become of I.A.E and Beatrus. Had they encountered outcasts as well? Despite being trained by Baaku and Askari Elite, he knew these outcasts were dangerous. They were young, reckless, fearless, and posed a grave threat to him and his friends. Ru shot Uzoma a smirk. "Fine," he said, pointing at the skull-wearing outcast. "I'll fight you for it." A crazed chuckle echoed from the outcast. "Fight me? I got the kill." Typical of a dungfly, the skull-wearer hurled the spear towards Ru with a deathly intent. He darted to the side, narrowly escaping the sharpened spear that cut through the air and flew past him. A sphere of red energy crackled and flew towards him, but he held up his arm and with a yell of defiance released a vibrant blast of yellow boko from his palm. The two forces collided, creating an explosion of sparks and flames before fading away. The third outcast viciously swung his sword at Uzoma, but he expertly deflected each strike. With a swift and powerful motion, Uzoma whipped his sword around, sending the blade of the outcast spiraling toward the sky. He wasted no time kicking the outcast hard in the chest before snatching the sword as it plummeted back toward the ground, and pressing both blades against the outcast's throat. "Yield," Uzoma demanded. "Please don't kill me," the young outcast begged. The skull-wearer dashed to get his spear while the Blackguard outcast and Ru exchanged blasts of boko, neither having the advantage. Ru leaped to the side as a red blast flew towards him and in one swift motion lunged forward, slashing the outcast Blackguard in both arms with a flurry of strokes. The outcast howled as Ru unleashed a brutal blast of yellow boko, striking him in the chest. He crashed to the ground, clutching his chest, writhing in agony. Uzoma and Ru both spun around to confront the skullwearer, who now brandished his spear. He lunged at Ru, who blocked the attack but stumbled backward from the force. Not missing a beat, the outcast spun his weapon in a deadly arc toward Uzoma. Uzoma instinctively ducked, but the strike caught Ru in the leg, tripping him. Uzoma leapt forward with his two blades, hoping to land a strike, but the skullwearer used the long shaft of the spear to keep him away. Ru sprang to his feet and, together with Uzoma, charged the skullwearer. However, the outcast was not completely untrained and had met each of their movements with quick blocks and precise attacks. His wide stances kept them at bay as he parried their attacks. Uzoma hurled a sword at the skullwearer, but he deflected it to the ground. Uzoma's gaze was drawn to a massive rock about the size of a human head. He thrust out his hand and imbued the rock with a wave of blue boko. With one powerful motion, he heaved the rock into the skullwearer's chest. He crumpled on impact and the spear flew from his grasp. Ru snatched the spear from midair as the skullwearer collapsed with a heavy gasp and clutched his chest in agony. "And you calves thought you had a chance against me," Ru sneered. "Don't mock them, Ru," Uzoma said. "Why not? They would kill us if we were not trained in combat." Ru was right. That one skullwearer could have added 2 more skulls to his collection, or let one of the other outcasts earn their skulls. The thought filled him with disgust and unease. He loathed outcasts. They leeched off society, terrorizing the innocent and murdering indiscriminately. Despite the presences of the Askari, there were always more outcasts. "Grab the warthog and let's go find the others," Uzoma said. "Filthy dregs," Ru said. Then they both stopped as a loud clap resonated nearby. Emerging from the thicket of bushes was an intimidating figure adorned in all black, with an array of skulls that dangled around his neck. A sinister scar descended through his right eye as a veil of dark fabric obscured the lower half of his face. A curved scimitar hung crookedly at his waist, its steel stained red with dried blood. "I see you defeated my men." Crimson boko cascaded from his hands as he used it to rip the spear from Ru's grip. Ru stared aghast at his empty hand, then glanced from Uzoma to the outcast in disbelief. The crimson hue of his red boko covered their blades, and with one swift pull he cast their weapons to the ground at his feet. "These will be of no use." He strolled up to the desperate young outcast who had pleaded for Uzoma not to kill him. The skull hunter thrust the spear right into the young outcast without hesitation. A bloody cough escaped from his lips as he desperately tried to speak through clenched teeth before he ceased moving. "Pathetic," the skull hunter said. Uzoma gulped something down, fighting the trembling in his legs as his courage waned. This was fear.